Reconciling thoughts recorded in ancient ink with today's digital pixels requires reconstructing the cognitive framework of a dead author for a living audience. For centuries, scholars have gravitated toward formal equivalence, the assumption that accuracy is best achieved through a literal, word-for-word swap. We see this approach in antiquity. When Jerome translated the scriptures into the Latin Vulgate, he argued that while most texts should be translated sense for sense, sacred documents required a structural copy, maintaining even the original punctuation. But the traditional literal versus free debate ignores the structural incompatibility of disparate languages. Mapping one grammar onto another with one-to-one precision is a formal impossibility. When you force English vocabulary into ancient Greek syntax, the result is Yoda speak. The words are English, but the sentence reads backward. Prioritizing the original physical form breaks its communicative function. The text becomes a structural puzzle, not a vehicle for information. Effective translation transfers the meaning and function of the source text across massive sociocultural and cognitive gaps. To understand how this works, we must drop the literal debate, build a first principles model, and test it against field data. Discarding the myth of formal equivalence is the necessary first step to understanding how meaning survives the journey between cultures. We can begin by expanding our definition of translation. Meaning transfer occurs across a semiotic spectrum that extends far beyond the traditional exchange between two foreign languages. The first domain is intralingual translation, the transfer of meaning within the same language. This process is visible when a doctor converts technical instructions for a child. The term low-fat diet is decoded into an abstract node of meaning, then re-encoded into a simplified target like food without much fat. The vocabulary changed, but the instruction remained identical. The meaning was extracted from its source form before being packaged for a new cognitive target. The second domain is intersemiotic translation, where meaning moves across entirely different sign systems. Adapting a written text into an audio drama or a film series requires stripping the narrative from ink and paper to rebuild it through sound waves and visual performance. Field linguists apply this through scripture engagement. By converting texts into songs or films, they bypass print literacy to establish a direct connection with the audience. The final domain is interlingual translation, the transfer between two distinct languages, which serves as our primary focus. All three domains operate on the same principle. Linguistic film is temporary, but function and meaning are the essential components that must be preserved. To execute this transfer systematically, linguists use academic frameworks like Juliana House's sociocultural matrix. House's model begins with the backward look. The translator analyzes the source text, breaking it down into distinct notes, its forms, its functions, and the author's original intent. This phase isolates the author's motives and the specific historical context in which they were writing. Once extracted, the translator executes the forward look. The isolated meaning is carried across the divide and mapped onto the target text. The target language contains entirely different cognitive and ideological phenomena. The audience holds a different view of the world than the original author. Bridging this gap requires negotiating between two disparate worldviews, using the target culture's available linguistic tools to depict the source's reality.
House's model redefines the translator as an analyst who must actively reconcile these two distinct sets of societal and cultural norms. How do field linguists determine if this bridge is structurally sound? They measure the success of a translation against four objective metrics. The first is accuracy. The exact meaning of the source text must be retained, with nothing added, changed, or removed. Second is naturalness. The text must conform to the organic, everyday syntax of the target language rather than forcing an artificial foreign structure. Third is clarity. The translated text should be immediately understandable to the user, requiring no external explanation to grasp the information. The final metric, acceptability, fluctuates based on the sociological expectations of the local community. It measures whether the tone and style of the text meet the audience's standards for the subject matter. A translation can be accurate, natural, and clear, but if it falls below the community's acceptability threshold, the project will fail to gain traction. Applying these metrics to field data reveals how acceptability dictates the final form of a text, as seen in two neighboring linguistic groups in Tanzania. The Sangu people possessed a young 20-year-old church. They required a highly communicative, natural translation to eliminate comprehension roadblocks for an audience still learning the scriptures. In contrast, the Wanji people had a church history spanning a century. They were deeply familiar with an older, literal Swahili Bible and demanded a translation that mirrored that established baseline. To succeed, the linguists had to build two different architectural approaches for two different target audiences. Ignoring the acceptability metric can lead to catastrophic results. In Central Asia, an agency produced a clear, meaning-based translation for a local language group. The linguists prioritized clarity, ensuring the text was as easy to understand as possible for a general audience. The community rejected it. They viewed the simplified language as for children, gathered the new Bibles, and set them on fire. The failure was rooted in regional expectations. Because the dominant local religion utilized highly complex literary registers for its holy texts, a clear and simple translation was viewed as a lack of reverence. Societal prestige and existing religious literature dictate the parameters of a translation just as strictly as grammar. In many contexts, a text that is clear is not necessarily acceptable. If a universal translation cannot exist, the linguist must decide exactly who the target text is built for. Field linguists typically target a demographic sweet spot, adults aged 25 to 45 within the believing community. At this age, cognitive processing is solidified. Designing for this bracket ensures the vocabulary is neither too archaic for younger readers nor too simplistic for the elders. To support this core text, translators include paratextual material, footnotes, glossaries, and cross-references. While a layperson may ignore these tools, they are vital for local pastors. Paratext allows them to access the granular depth of the source text, which they then communicate to the congregation through preaching. Successful translation bridges the ancient and modern worlds. It achieves this by balancing rigorous academic accuracy with the living sociocultural expectations of the audience.